Good morning, fam. And I definitely want to welcome everyone to another bullpen, a conversation in the bullpen. This has been a long month. It really has. It seems like since our last conversation in the bullpen with Brother Bukhari on. Shout out to Brother. It seems like this month has really been long, but we here. It's Sunday, January the 30th, 2022. And I want to thank each and every one who is having an opportunity to be a part of this conversation this morning. I definitely want to send out, as always, a shout out to Brother Assar, Minister Assar, with the Temple New African Thought for allowing me to utilize his space and his time. Thank you, Brother Assar. Much love to you. I appreciate you. I also want to thank, the Baltimore family for those who tune in and, each conversation we have. Thank you all. Definitely want you to subscribe to the bullpen. Want you to like, want you to share. You may not have an opportunity maybe to watch it this morning, but when you get an opportunity, make sure that you send it out to some of your friends. Also, want to send a shout out to my family back in Anderson, Alabama, who's always watching. I love you all back in the 205. Much love to you. Keep doing what you're doing. So it's another great day. This is a special day. This is I definitely want to introduce someone I had the opportunity to meet again through Brother Bukhari. Brother Bukhari, thank you for making this happen. To my left is Sister Nicoleta Brown. I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with her prior to Sunday. It's a beautiful sister. She definitely has a story to tell. I'm not going to speak for her, speak for herself, but just a little background. She's definitely impressed me in terms of just her resilience and what she had to endure. Formerly incarcerated herself. She's the first sister, the first woman to be a part of the bullpen. So that in itself, I guess, is a milestone. But I'm very happy that that she agreed to come on. Take some time out of her day, her morning, Sunday morning, to be a part of this discussion. So, Carlita, thank you, for saying yes, for coming on to the bullpen, and just opening up. You tell those who are tuning in this morning just a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into some of the other conversations about some of the experiences. And I really want to talk a little bit about and other things as well. But definitely, as I shared with you earlier, about you know maybe some of the things that led to you, one, say becoming incarcerated, some of the challenges that you had to face as a young woman being in prison, and for the length of time you were there, and then the release of some of the challenges. And I know it's a lot to try to pack into an hour, but definitely kind of just give us some type of structure, conversation wise, that we can utilize. So if you don't mind, just talk to the audience, tell them a little bit about who is Carlita Brown.
Yes. Okay. Who is Carlita Brown? So yes, as you said, I was previously incarcerated for 22 years. At the age of 18, I received 40 years, 30-year sentence for second-degree murder, and 10 years first five no parole for handgun. I'm not going to make any excuses or give a long, drawn out detail. It's just basically, and I'm not going to say I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. It's just about decision. You, for a long time, I blamed everybody. Not having a father, having a mother there but not present. Um, Living on my own from basically the age of 13 to 18, doing what I wanted to do, living out on the streets, hanging with hustlers, people older than me. I blamed all of it for the decisions that I made. I just lived from that age of 13 to 18. My life was just pretty much dark. Just pretty much dark. I've been shot at the age of 15, shot at the age of 16, back and forth to Georgia because my, single mother with 3 kids, don't know what to do. Right. Went off, got married. Um, so you just basically just out there existing, looking for something to fill what is absent in your life. And so that's what I did. I slept on people's couches. I slept outside. I know what it is to be without a home. I know what it is to be out there, to be used and abused as a young girl. I wasn't taught, the lessons of being a lady. I wasn't taught, the things that growing up that history teach us about how to develop into womanhood, make those transitions. And so basically the things that I learned, the skills that I learned watching guys and women, seeing their interactions, and it became a thing for me. I wanted. It didn't look like they were struggling to me. It looked like they were happy. They were getting money. They were doing what they wanted to do, and I wanted that. But I was too young to understand what came with it. And so, as a result of that decision making, for because of the lack of knowledge, I ended up in prison. Being in prison, this is funny, and I don't tell people this, but before I got incarcerated, Lil Kim was the thing. She was the highlight. And when I went in prison, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be just like her. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to prison, and I'm gonna do what I want to do the way that I want to do it, and I'm gonna make a way to survive. So I wouldn't want or need anything. So that street mentality that I had, I took it in. And my first couple years was rough because I was young. People couldn't tell me what to do. My line was, "My mother ain't tell me what to do, so you're not gonna tell me what to do." And I have a twin brother who I didn't realize that he's incarcerated too. I put him in a lot of situations because everybody knows each other in prison. So, my behavior was kind of reckless. And when I say I did what I wanted to do, the way that I wanted to do it, that's that. Use your imagination, people. um, and just years and years of just abusing myself, abusing my body, abusing other people. Um, I did things, I said things, I manipulated people to get what I wanted. Girls, guys, staff, didn't matter. If I could manipulate you to do what I wanted you to do or give what I wanted you to give, I did it. And I didn't even know that was power being misused. And so years and years and years of being reckless, it kind of caught up with me. I had a moment like realizing, because I also thought that I would never see the light of day. I would never leave prison. And I felt like I had, if this is where I'm gonna be, then I have to be as content and comfortable as I possibly can, no matter what that looked like. But I had that moment of breaking, of being tired. I knew that I wanted something, I just didn't know what I wanted. And I did a transfer from the women's prison to Patuxent. And when I got to Patuxent, it was like candy. I walked in a candy shop. I was like, "Oh yeah, ain't no changes for me." So my first year there, I was more than reckless. Um, I made a name. I made a name for myself there, and not in a positive way at first. And then I had another moment. I had a revelation. I met a brother who walked up to me one day and was like, "I don't want to offend you, but it's more to you than what you are presenting." And that impacted my life in that moment. If that was a pivotal moment, no man has ever spoke that to me. No woman, no one has ever spoke those words to me. And so from that day on, he would send me, lessons and get me to read them. I've always been prepared. I've always been the one to stand out. I never really fit in into a crowd or whatever, but after putting in, studying and reading, I became interested in learning who I was. And during this time at this particular institution, I did a lot of facilitating youth. And I realized that I was living a double life. I'm telling them to do one thing, but then when I'm away from them, I'm doing another thing. And when I made the connection, this is how I made that connection. One of the youth was like, "Y'all sitting here telling us about y'all time here and what y'all doing, but let me ask you a question. Out of all the people in the room who chose me," he said, "Who are you?" I could answer. And so that broke me in that moment because out of all the mouth I had when I was young, I couldn't answer that question. And so I made a promise to that young lady that the next time you see me, I'll be able to answer. And it was no turning back for me. I did a turnaround. I began to change my mindset. I began to change my intention in learning, about history and learning who I was. I would write a fella, and not on no sexual thing. We would write exchanging information about history, about learning about black men and women. And even though being in prison, most people think that it's impossible to connect on a spiritual level with another human being. But for myself, I did that. And that is what kind of set the pace for my journey of transformation into womanhood. And we would write back and forth. I would read. I would send back my understanding of it. Then didn't even know that during this time I was creating lessons um, out of my own life, from my own experiences, and then I began to share it. So then I started creating think tanks for women, um, matching, mirroring what the males was doing on their side. I began to take on the responsibility to lead women into studying and learning about the knowledge of who they are. And I just, with this one particular brother, we just had a strong connection, a bond that we still have today. And nothing, um, again, it has nothing to do with the physical existence. It's more so the spiritual existence, the connection that exists. And I've never ever experienced that with another human being in my life. And so fast forward now, um, after creating different, I was fortunate to create an organization called Victims Awareness Building Bridges Project for women in prison that came to a place in their lives where they were ready to kind of own their stuff. Like for me, I blamed everybody but myself for what I did. And I was fortunate to meet a lot of people bringing victims of various crimes, and we sat and we had the toughest conversation. And as I look back, I realized that I've hurt a lot of people in my life by my decision making, and I had to reason in myself and own that and sit with it. And that's one of the hardest things to do, when you had to admit your wrong and your imperfections. And I was able to do that. And fast forward 22 years later, being released, I'm still somewhat baffled um, of the system that I spent so much time in prison. Prison didn't teach me how to deal with it. Prison didn't cater to my emotions, the things that I needed, struggling. Like when you out and you talking, you doing these classes, you teaching, you make it look easy for people, but they don't know what you go through when you're by yourself. They don't know what you go. All they see is this strong figure, this image. Because I've always been a leader. I just didn't recognize how special I was. And to even now, I still struggle with recognizing my own power and authority as a woman. It's tough, especially coming from where I come from. And again, I still have those nights that not too many people know about. Sitting in my cell. One of the things that I appreciate about prison is time. I had so much time to read, to write, to think, to organize, to figure things out, to either to create a vision for what I want for my future. Now that I'm out here, I got to be intentional about my time because I don't have the same kind of time.
Right, that's right.
I got to create time for me to read books. Then it was easy.
Time, yeah,
It was easy to do. And so that's a struggle. That's a struggle psychologically. And even now, like I was sharing with you, first coming home, I'm telling people psychologically it's hard. I'm trying to adjust, but nobody's listening to me. All they want to know is what was your experience? That's all they was concerned about. I've sat on panels since I've been home. I spoke, to many audience, but it felt like no one was really getting me. No one was really hearing me. I've been in prison longer than I want to. That's something to be said and not to be looked over. Psychologically, coming into prison, I was 13,
Exactly. Right.
not 18.
Right. That's right.
My life stopped for me at the age of 13. People wasn't listening. And so I even now I find myself sitting in my room like I'm in my cell. I'm still like it still takes a lot out of me to move around in a house. It does. It takes, like, I don't really travel in places I don't know nothing about.
Mhm.
So this is new for me. It's exciting, but it's also, nervous because I know that I have to learn to live and adapt. I make it look easy. People think that I'm good, but no, on the inside, I'm nervous as fuck. But people don't, they not listening.
No, I think definitely. You know, you said a lot, and just to try to unpack some of what you said. First, I want to go back and if you shared with me the brother that walked up to you in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely want you to call mention his name, but I want if it's okay to mention his name. That the brother came and you said, "Well, hey, sister, you you know, there's more to you." To my brother Bakari, not to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, brother Bakari, I really want to thank you. If you're watching this, the bullpen conversation, brother Bakari, Tiba, the brother been on the bullpen before. Some of y'all may have seen him talking about intimacy, relationship 101. This is the brother she's referring to, brother that I'm going to walk into the sister. So I definitely thank you, brother, for being that light, being that voice, being that vessel that the Creator used to say to the sister, there's more to you than what you're demonstrating, and help to put on being a light to open that door. And when you talked about, and I'm glad you said that, because one of the analogies that I use, I talk about in the story, talks about Moses going to Mount Sinai and talk about the burning bush. That burning bush represents a moment when we all speak of God. Now, I shared my story about the first time when I called my burning bush moment, when I realized that it was more to me than what I was demonstrating. Bukhari came in that form of records pointing something out to you, what I would call a burning bush moment where God is speaking to you, that something clicked. But you said, but it was the younger sister who said, "Who are you?" And you wasn't able to answer that question. And I think, and now as you talk about going through what I would call your different stages of development while you were in prison and coming to a point realizing one, owning your truth, owning your story, the good and the bad. Because as we know, it's not just the things that we do well that we learn from, it's the things that we do that we don't do correctly that we learn from. Because I always share with people that much of, I would say the majority of what I know about life came from the mistakes that I made. But as I shared with you, I would trade my life all the money in the world because of the knowledge that I've gained from my experience. It's more valuable to me than gold. So definitely your experiences has is allowed you not only say to see the mistakes that you've made, but also it's allowed you to see the worth that you share that you have as well. And you talked about establishing programs while you was incarcerated and helping other sisters. And you talked about the victims program, where and it's not easy. To sit down before someone whom you've hurt, someone you've harmed, someone that who is not in a place of receiving that, but yet having to face that person, saying to that person that I was wrong, ask for forgiveness. And that person may say, well, you know what? I, I'm, I'm, I'm thankful for the meeting, but I can't forgive you right now. I don't know, but I'm sure those kinds of things happen. And having to go through that, and I agree, I believe that the Creator uh, was preparing you for something greater within yourself. One, by bringing Bakari into your life, the young sister who said, "Who are you?" and you facing yourself in prison. But the other key thing you really talked about is very important, talking about, because see that in itself is I would say is gender neutral. We talk about the psychological aspect of it. People want to know what how big was your pistol, how much dope you sold, but they're not necessarily really into what's going on with you. How can I need help. I can tell you my story, but that's not necessarily helping me. It's helping you because whatever sensation or you're getting from that, but it's not helping me. And the
Mm-hmm.
psychological aspect of it is being incarcerated. You talked about for 22 years. And what prison does to someone. Being in an environment, as you say, entering prison at 18, but yet 13 chronologically, you were 18 years old. But mentally, in fact, you were 13 because there were so many things, and you said a lot of people you hurt, but a lot of people hurt you as well. Obviously, I don't know all of your story, whether it was the father not being present, whether the mother not being present, whether the young man, instead of seeing you and saying, well, how can I help this in a positive way? I want to put that package in your hand. I want to put that pistol in your hand. I want you to go out and put in some work. So there were a lot of people, from what you shared me, there was a part of your life, but was not a part of life in the way that they should have been, that kept contributing, as you say. It was my choice, like it was your choice. And those people, instead of saying, because many times I don't know them, never met them, but we know hurt people hurt people. You know, broke glass cut. So when we're dealing with people who are hurting themselves, who are broken themselves, they don't know how to help someone. All they know how was intentionally or unintentionally is to victimize someone because they haven't been victimized. But you was able to recognize it. Well, look, I can't go on this way. So I want to talk about the psychological piece because that piece is very, very important. Because you and I, when we first met, we talked about physically, you know, obviously we are here.
Mm-hmm.
But as I shared, it was 3 years before I could say psychologically I was beginning to make that transition because initially I came out, I was still in prison. And you talked about that. And so what are some of the things that you recognize that, okay, psychologically, there are some things going on with me. And so what are some of the things that you have identified that has helped you, even though you need more help in your work? But what were some of the things that you did to help yourself in dealing with that psychological trauma?
I just learned to replace. I'm very strategic in my movement, and I just learned, like for instance, noise. I learned to meditate in noise, and so when it's like extra quiet, I found it hard for me to meditate. So what I did was I brought things that made noise until I can settle myself and get used to being in a different environment. I brought a lot of bracelets that make noise, so when I move, I can hear them. And until so, like now, I say I give it like 2 weeks, 2 3 weeks. I haven't wore the bracelets, like 10 of them. That when I walk, I can hear 'em. It's the symbol of peace. You know that you can hear the COs walking.
Right.
For whatever reason, I look for that when I being home, and so I just strategically, because it was like no one was understanding what I was going through, and so I just find it's like moments like that, situations like that, even like still being in my room. Now I'm starting to come out. I give myself permission, and I tell myself it's okay. And so slowly, and I don't rush myself. I will not. I'm not running a race. I want to be healthy. And I figure if I just keep sitting around waiting for somebody to help me, it's not going to get done. So I really have to push myself and encourage myself and give myself permission. That is important to me. And like I said at the beginning, be intentional about my movement because I can't help you if I can't help myself.
That's right.
And so I just learned to adopt ways. There's a gentleman that I know who helps me a lot. His name is Alex Smith. You may be familiar with him from Division Street Landscaping. This gentleman challenges me to the point of no return. Sometimes I don't like him because as a woman who's never really had the male model of manhood besides the men, the brothers that journeyed with me at the particular institution we were at, they all I knew. That they represented manhood to me because we studied together. They protected me. They molded me. They cultivated me. But they all I knew. Now that I'm home, I try not, like I was sharing with you, I don't listen to a lot of women, opinionated women. If I'm having an issue and if I have a question, I do discuss certain things with women, but I always do my best to get a male's perspective because that brings me balance. As a woman, we tend to be so emotional, and when we have struggles in situations, we come from an emotional place. But this particular gentleman, he gives it to me matter of fact. He tells it like it should be told. And at first, I was intimidated by it, but now he has been a big part of my growth and me overcoming these psychological challenges. Even like picking a job, the jobs. Like I shared with you, I think that my first 6 months, I came out, I was an executive director for a nonprofit organization, but I was limited and they wasn't paying me, but I know no better. I just was like, oh yeah, I'm boss and I got, big time till I realized no. And so it's decisions like for my life. He challenged me to like really put thought into what I'm doing and investigate and ask questions. It's okay. And but that mindset in prison where you don't ask questions. you just take what's given to you
Right.
and be good with it. And so even in that, I had to break through and not be afraid to, ask questions
Right. That's right.
in unfamiliar environment and not be ashamed that I don't know how to ride the bus. And these are things that him and we discuss. We talk about relationships between men and women. We talk about that because psychologically, I struggle with that. I look at relationships like prison. I said I would never get married. I would never commit myself to another because I've always looked at it as a prison. I ain't checking in.
Right.
I don't want you clocking my movement.
Right.
I don't want to have to call nobody and be like, can I go here or I'm going. That was, that prison mentality that I picked up on, and I brought it out here. I was afraid of men, especially. Well, let me say unfamiliar men. Afraid of them, and I'm like basically a wall. And when men say something to me, I like show them off. I don't know if they flirting. I know now because I've kind of like unclothed myself. I would make jokes about being a borderline feminist, but there's some truth in that. Like, don't open the door for me. These are psychological things. I wasn't taught these things. How to be a lady, how to let, men play a certain role. I wasn't taught these things. I had to learn these things, and I'm still learning these things. But yeah, I'm the type, like, I can change the tire. I don't need you to change the tire. I learned that I can fix the washing machine and dryer. I'm certified in building and maintenance. I picked up so many skills because I said if I ever make it home, I'm not going to ask nobody to do anything for me. And so now being out here and kind of changing my way of thought, like, it's a process. And it's difficult. It's difficult.
I'm glad you said that because, again, you touched on, when we talk a little bit about, you said that the noise was very important in your healing process.
Yes.
Having the bracelet but I want the audience, for those who may not be familiar with it. So in prison, it's a lot of noise in prison all the time. With the keys, the correction officer have on the side of them, is the doors closing, it's the dormitory, it's the tears, it's a lot of noise. It's interesting because when the first time I really experienced noise I would say in an adverse way, I was in a dorm. It was a 150 man dorm, 75 men on each side, and it was just a constant noise. And I saw myself giving way to the noise to the point to where I was trying to drown it out. And I remember when I was going to school during that time, and there's a term called noise pollution. I've always heard of air pollution. I've heard of water pollution, but I never heard of noise pollution and how noise pollution can adversely affect someone. But then I began to think about that if you watch movies, war movies, when they capture someone and place them, I would say, in a jail, and part of the torture is a constant noise, whether radio playing, whether it's a loud scream, and that noise it does affect you psychologically. And so for me, constantly hearing that noise, I had to get up, I had to walk away. I'm saying that to say that we should talk about the noise, but now what Carlita has said is that became a part of her reality where she needed the noise in that respect because it brought her back to, it was a healing for her because as opposed to quietness of just being quiet, an unfamiliar reality in a place where there isn't a lot of noise. And so in some ways that caused some anxiety. We're talking about the psychological effects now, caused some anxiety within her because now something that she had become familiar part had been conditioned to was taken away. So they had to be replaced with something. But the great thing is she used it for a way of healing herself, not just saying that I need this noise, but how can I take this noise and it be a healing? It can be a healing process for me. That was one of the things that I wanted to share. Okay, many times when when we're speaking, a lot of times in the audience, they may not be familiar with the environment, or we will hear certain things when we're taught, and people who've been in like places understand, but there are a lot of people that don't understand that when we talk about the Northern Canadian. But there was another thing you shared also that I wanted to touch on when you talked about, just being in the room, just being in the room, because again, in prison, for the most part, you're told what time to go to bed, what time to get up, what time to eat, what time to shower, So much of your life is defined for you. And you spend a lot of time in yourself, whether it's a lockdown, whether it's a security breach, whether, the prison just be on their stuff that they're not opening up. So, you locked in that room. So again, that become a conditioning, and you just don't turn that off when you come home. And I want the sister listening to think about this, who have kings who coming home, is that many times they find, because myself, I can go up in the room and I can sit in the room and I'm okay. I'm okay in one aspect of it, but it's the health, but it's not if there's family around, if there's children, there's relationship. So obviously you don't want to be in the room. That can be an unhealthy aspect too. But 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 when when the individual is in the room, it's not necessarily mean that that person is necessarily is in an unhealthy place, something going on with that person. It's just that person has been conditioned in a way that where in that space right there, that's where they are. And they've learned to live within that space, learn to live within that box. We have to break that. We have to challenge that. We have to address that. But we've learned to live within that box. And so now when we come home, as she says, giving herself permission to step outside of that. My queen, she often constantly tell me about, uh, kind of paraphrasing what she was saying, but she would always tell me, you're not in that prison cell. And I know what she's referring to because I will isolate myself sometimes in a way that where it's okay to come out. It's okay to come out. But you're talking about 22 years of having to live like that. And one other key thing you talked about was the prison does not provide the kind of environment that allows an inmate, whether male or female, to begin to address those issues. And now they open the door. They say, okay, well, you made parole. They release you. But yet, when you come home, you bring all of that behavior with you. You bring that mindset with you. You bring those inclinations with you. You bring that conditioning with you, and it does not go away. So I just didn't want the audience to miss what you were talking about, is being in the room, or the keys, the noise, in ways that have impacted her. But also, the piece you talked about was the relationship piece, and just being in a trusting place, being in a place where unfamiliar with that, because again, whether it's male or female, once you enter prison, we're in an unnatural environment. She's in a prison where maybe the correction officer, maybe some male correction officer, but for the most part, she's in a women environment. As a man, I'm in an all man environment. Those are unnatural environments. There's no children, there's no relationship, there's no parents, there's no animals, there's no birth. Everything that is conducive to a socialization process that's needed to produce healthy individuals, that is taken. You don't find that within the prison environment. So now you have to adapt. You have to adapt, because we all adapt to an environment that we're in. Because the strong urge that we have is the will to live, the will to survive. So we adapt to the new environment, but in adapting to the new environment, what that does, that begin to impact your behavior in ways that you may not be familiar with, you will bring those behavior back, as we would say, back to the free world or back to mainstream society. So now having to learn how to be in a relationship, having to learn how to be a woman, having to learn how to those things that if I'm saying we in the community had those institutions that help guide young men and young women in developing themselves, but now having to relearn those skills or learn them for the first time as an adult person. And it does take time. But I definitely want to commend you on the progress you have made and the fact that you've shared it, because you really I want the audience to really listen to what she was saying. If you missed it the first time, go back, when it's concluded, and play it and listen to what she's saying, because she's sharing a lot of information that I would say that is gender neutral. Of course, there's some specific things, obviously being a woman, different from a man, but definitely there's a lot of similarities, which you talked about, the noise, the isolation, the psychological, that impacts both male and female because of the imprisoned environment, what it does in behavior, what I would call behavior remodification. So I'm glad you shared that with me. And but I just wanted to jump in right there when you were talking about those things, because I didn't want the audience to miss
Right.
that what you shared, because we talk about it, we know, but a lot of times they listen and say, what does that mean? The keys and the noise. So that was I thought that was a very a great point that you made, in your transition. So obviously now that you out, you talked about one of the things you shared with me was that you are a professional success coach.
Oh yeah, personal success coach.
So can you talk a bit about what that is, and kind of and how are you helping people with that?
So again, um, and this is a interesting journey
Mm-hmm.
of mine. Again, the gentleman Alex that I spoke about earlier. I was venting to him one day about my frustration
Mm-hmm.
about working. I'd rather wake up in the morning loving what I do.
Okay.
It's not really about the money, even though I need to eat, pay
Right.
bills.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather wake up in the morning and be happy
That's right.
about
Mm-hmm.
what I'm going to do. And I believe I have the freedom to choose
That's right.
whatever it is
Mm-hmm.
that I would like to do. But anyway, I was venting to him one day about my frustrations in the situation that I was in,
Mm-hmm.
and I was depleting
Mm-hmm.
emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
I was drained. I was just tired because I felt like no one was listening to me. Don't send me to no more programs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what it seemed like people were doing, the
Mm-hmm.
people that I was reaching out to. And so after we talked, he didn't ask for my permission.
Mm-hmm.
He just made one phone call. And after he made whatever phone call he made, I got a call from a young lady. And we talked, and I obliged her, and I went with her. And it wasn't a good fit
Mm-hmm.
the first place. And then I got another phone call, and we just gelled, the young lady I spoke to in the second phone call. And so I gave it a try. I went through, I don't want to call it a program, but it was a journey for me.
Mm-hmm.
Pivot. That's what
Okay.
it's called. It's for women. It's a workforce development program for
Right.
women.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked in and I was looking at them people and I was like, I'm not doing this because it
Mm-hmm.
felt like another program.
Right.
It felt like another this something that I've already did and I don't
Right.
want to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I expressed that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very transparent. I'm very honest when it comes to me.
Right.
And they were receptive. And then nonetheless, they was like, give it a try. Just
Mm-hmm.
give it a try. And nonetheless, it changed my life forever. I
Mm-hmm.
went through the 8 week journey and I ended up, I guess after like 5 weeks, I ended up at Living Classroom.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that I really, we didn't, I gave, the way they put me on 90-day probation, I put them on 90-day probation.
Right.
90-day probation was up.
Yeah.
I gave my 2 week
Yeah.
notice because I wasn't moving like they said I was going to move.
Right.
And I had received a phone call and asked could I meet the executive director and the program manager for Pivot. I went out to lunch for them. They gave me two offers.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed, my ears enjoyed both offers.
Right.
And so I took one.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, I've been working as the personal success coach for Pivot, helping women who have criminal backgrounds,
Mm-hmm.
helping them, encouraging them to not settle for just anything.
Right.
And encouraging them just because you got a criminal background don't mean that you necessarily have to work at McDonald's.
Right.
However,
Mm-hmm.
if McDonald's is hiring
Mm-hmm.
and you are in need of
Mm-hmm.
something, then don't settle because I used to clean toilets.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing that is beneath me.
Mm-hmm.
But however, if you're passionate about something, then you have to take the necessary steps, whatever that those steps are for you as an individual.
Right.
You have to take that, but you decide that.
Right.
For so long, I can speak for myself. For so long, I lived my life the way other people wanted me to live.
Yeah.
It isn't until just now that this word freedom hits different for me.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily physical freedom,
Mm-hmm.
because even in church, you got to live your life the way that group of people want you to live.
Right.
And the minute you deviate from that, you get criticized
Right.
and judged. So now I look at freedom as I have the right to choose
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that I want for my life, the way that I want it.
Mm-hmm.
If it's conducive for my growth and development
Mm-hmm.
and it brings no harm
Right.
to
That's
other
right.
people.
That's right.
And so
Mm-hmm.
as a personal success coach and a mentor, that is what I
Mm-hmm.
that's the message that I bring. I don't want to tell you what to do
Mm-hmm.
because even if you've been where I've been, your story is still
Mm-hmm.
different than
Right.
mine
That's
and your
right.
need
Right.
is different than mine. We may
Mm-hmm.
have similarities, but what makes us just unique is our individuality. And so that is what I live my life by today.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time to reach this level of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, the universe just rotated in my direction to put me and meet people like you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know a lot of people. And I'm overprotective of my space
Right.
now. I think I shared with you that I stopped talking for a long time,
Right.
for a minute, because I had to regroup. Because again, I need to be intentional.
Right.
And because I need to be intentional, I need to know what you want with me
Right. No, that's
and
right.
why.
Yeah, that's right.
And I have the freedom to ask those things and to investigate and learn people before I give you a yes.
Right.
Because my yes is powerful.
That's right. That's
And this is what I give to people. I give them me. I can only give them what's in me to give. And so I do my best to be authentic and transparent, but I know everything ain't for everybody, so I
Right.
got to just pick,
Right.
choose and refuse what I say, how I say it, and depending on where I am. But this is me, and my name is Carlita. But people that have poured into me, that know me, they acknowledge me as a Sabi. I believe that there's power in the name. Just like before Paul, he was Saul,
Right.
and when he made his conversion, you know, he he changed. He got his name changed because it spoke different. It hit different. And so for me, again, going back to not just Bakaria isn't the only one who's responsible for, you know, my growth and development and me making a conscious decision to do different and see different and become in touch with who I am, not just culturally but historically. My name got changed as a rite of passage into womanhood, into Asabi Owusa Ayaloa, which means she is of choice birth as the clear of the way and joy of our people. That's who I am. And so when people acknowledge that, they speak life into me. And so, yeah.
That's right. Asabi, I got
And so, yeah, that's a part of me being free to choose. And eventually I will legalize that name because that is who I can. I feel like myself when I am acknowledged, when I acknowledge myself as such, because you can be regular all day.
Right.
Regular don't do nothing for me no more.
No, you're absolutely right. No, you're right.
Regular don't do anything for me no more. And so there's a standard. And that standard that exists, I'm not going to deviate from that. And so the people that I meet and the people that I surround myself around, they have to live up to that standard or make a decision to move away.
No, that's I mean that's real. I mean, I definitely commend you for that, Wasabi. You know, and it is power in that. It's power in that. I know, like yourself, you know, my government name for back in the day when I was on a different thing, I would say my slave name. You know, my slave name was Max Ragland. I said, I'm a little older now, so I don't have to say that. But I see my government name is Max. I said, but my righteous name is, you know, it's a Jamu Ali of Kennedy. You know, that's my righteous name. And but that was the name that Ali was given to me by a brother. I love this brother back home in now. So shout out to brother Abdul Haq, a Muslim brother who he's my cousin. He was the imam. But at a young age, you know, we used to go out, you know, back in the 70s and sell the little innocents and the hats. You know, and he introduced me to Islam in a different way, meaning that he would invite me to the masjid. You know, he gave me my first Quran came from him, and my name was, you know, was Ali Abdul Sabu, because I changed it, but I kept Ali. I really loved that name because, you know, that was a different side. That represented something different. It represented righteousness. It represented, took on the name because it expressed, you know, as a young man, you know, except taking Shahada at age 15 years old, you know what that meant for me. But also when I read the story about Ali, the prophet's nephew, and what he was, you know, during that time. So I really embraced that name. But then I took the name of Jamu Kennedy as you know, that I incorporate into my life, in which, you know, simply mean, you know, a spiritual one, a journey one, a one who evolves, you know, one who evolves. So that was important to me. So definitely there's power in names. I think you should be, as you say, to make it clear, very clear as to how you want to be addressed, and then you want to be dressed by, because a lot of people back home, you know, and I don't know. So, you know, Cash was my name was I was out there in the life. You know, Cash is my name. You know, that's a part of who I am. That's a part of my personality. And you know, and I've learned so much from being Cash. And a lot of people, I go back home, what's up, Cash? I don't have a problem with that. But also, but Cash but it's not all who I am. There's other aspects who I am, but the greater in me now, because, you know, as the analogy go, what we feed is the one that we give life to.
Right.
So if I fed Cash all the time at 64 years old, then Cash gonna be out there cutting up in the street. But I don't feed Cash in that way. I keep Cash around because I need Cash. I need to pull him out every now and then. But for the most part, it's either Ali that pretty much is my demonstration,
Right.
because that's what I feed. That's the part of me that has allowed me to be able to connect with God in a different kind of way.
Right.
So I definitely respect the fact that, being addressed as a Sabi and what the names mean to you and what it represents in your life now. So I would say congratulations with that, because it starts there. And the Bible says itself, it says a good name is more valuable than gold and silver.
Right.
It took me a long time to really to understand that and what that really meant, because I did the name that I was given by my father and my mother, and making the choices that I made, and the shame that I brought to my family, the hurt and the pain, because I did that. Like you say, owning my stuff, I did that, but also to the name. And so just the people didn't know me, but they knew the name, but they're associated with the name with something wrong, something, corrupt, something deceptive.
Right.
And I said, I want to change that, man. So I definitely appreciate what you're saying. So we have about 10 minutes left, but definitely one of the things I want you to talk a bit about before we close is that looking back now, because you've only been, I think, probably going about 2 years now, so it hasn't really been that long,
Right.
relative to how long you stayed incarcerated. So what would have been helpful? Because obviously, a lot of sisters still behind the wall.
Right.
A lot of sisters out here that's kind of struggling. So what would have been helpful for you? Once say they've been a part of prison, that would better prepared you, say, to come back home, to return back to the community.
I believe what have helped me is preparation, in the sense of, don't wait for a 90-day within a release date
Right.
to try
Right.
to give me resources
Right.
and therapy and
Mhm.
things of that nature. I believe if with all the programming that they do, if they set something in place for men and women, not just long term, but
Mhm.
everybody
Right.
who
Mhm.
is experiencing the same hardship,
Mhm.
and that you design something to help
Mhm.
them psychologically. Mental
Right.
health is real.
Right. That's right.
Depression is real.
That's right. Mhm.
And if there was something set in place for me, that I could utilize there, aside from just using my own personal
Right.
resources,
Mhm.
I believe I would have been better prepared.
Mhm.
Even like something so simple as riding a bus.
Right.
I got on the bus and the bus talk, I was scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something so small to prepare you for
Mhm.
things of that nature. I've never owned anything in my life.
Mhm.
Never paid a bill. These are conversations that we just did not have, and
Got it. Mhm.
there was nothing set up,
Mhm.
for you to
Mhm.
learn.
Mhm.
Yeah, you have something like financial literacy that they just walk you through the books.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably like ancient.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So now
Mhm.
we got technology. There's
Yeah.
nothing set up. Even that, I'm a quick learner, and
Mhm.
I know that I make things seem easy,
Mhm.
but it ain't.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not. And I believe if they had something set up to help you deal with that, because it affects you emotionally
Mhm.
when you can't get things done,
Right. Right. It does.
when you
Mhm.
feel like you are an alien.
Mhm.
And I just believe, I really do believe that the programming needs to be redesigned,
Mhm.
and not even programs. Put something in place that is
Yeah.
that will be effective
Well.
for
Mhm.
men and women, especially women, because we're so emotional.
Mhm.
We deal with so much. Like you spoke of earlier, having kids,
Right.
loved ones, and we respond to being incarcerated emotionally.
Right.
That's
Right.
how we respond
Right.
to
Mhm.
being incarcerated. We don't intellectualize it.
Mhm.
We feel.
Mhm.
And so those hardships that we go through, there is nothing that meets you right there
Mhm.
to help you get through those days and nights.
Mhm.
I've experienced suicides in
Mhm.
prison
Mhm.
because someone called out for
Mhm.
help and people thought that they just was crying for attention,
Right.
but yeah,
Yeah.
they are.
Right.
So
Right.
if there was some type of training put in place
Mhm.
to be
Mhm.
sensitive
Right.
to the hardships.
Mhm.
Yeah, we made decisions to put ourselves there, but at the end of the day, we're human. And
Right.
if you want us to go out to be better
Mhm.
and to do different and to think different, then put something in place that will provoke that.
Mhm.
And when you put something in place that will provoke that, it will make the transition so much more easier.
Mhm.
Because for me as an individual, my issues are internal,
Right. Okay.
not external. My
Mhm.
issues are internal, and you will not know it if you won't take the time to listen to you.
Right.
Even with the different programs they put in place, instead of asking me what it is that I need, they
Mhm.
trying to figure it out on
Right.
their own.
Right.
But you
Right.
never been in prison.
Right.
And so these are things that troubles me
Mhm.
because they won't have. I'm not gonna say they won't. I'm gonna say the majority of these programs and leaders, they will not sit down with men and women who are incarcerated or have been previously incarcerated and have these conversations.
Right.
You
You're right.
can't build a facility and think that it's gonna work and train men and women who have been in prison if you don't have conversations with them. You're not
That's
going
right.
to be effective
That's right.
because you don't know what they need.
Right. That's right.
So you don't know how to provide. And that's how we fall short in the system because we won't you won't listen because it is really at the end of the day it just exposes their weaknesses and their intentions. Because your intentions is really not for me to win. So that's why it's so hard for me to do it myself, encourage myself, and look for the resources myself,
Right.
and connect with men and women who who know the struggle and know what it takes to succeed.
No, I'm glad you shared that with you, and I definitely want to say to the listening audience out there, um, share this bullpen conversation, share it with a family member, share it with a colleague, share it with a coworker, whomever, because what we want to do is reach those men and women who are in positions that where they can effect change, where they can effect change in Annapolis, they can effect change here in Baltimore City, on the city council, in the mayor's office, wherever change can be effected, to where begin to address, the needs of men and women who are incarcerated, as well as those who are returning home. As the sister outlined and clearly stated, some things that we definitely need to focus on. She's absolutely correct because I experienced that when coming out of prison. When I found out, I went through a 2-week program. I'd been in prison for 12 years and went through a 2-week program about fill out a job application or pretty much that was it. Fill out a job application. How do you talk to people? That was it. I've been through almost for 12 years of my life. So definitely, you know, part of what I'm doing is, I recognize what the Sabi recognizes is that no, something different needs to take place inside the institution in preparing. That's why me and Behind Bars was developed to say, I wanted to go back inside the institution and say, well, look, begin to teach those brothers, work with those brothers, help those brothers heal, to get them to a place so when they're blessed or forced to make parole, then they will come out with some skills, with some tools that they can use to help them in that transition. Not like a brother 5, 10, 15, 20 years, open the door and have them worked on themselves and you say, okay, go out and be successful. But most part, it's not going to work. So I definitely hope those who are listening, are really listening, to what Sister Sabi is saying in terms of things, having that conversation, with men and women. There's definitely a knowledge, a lived knowledge that we bring to the table. There are those who are trained. They may be businessmen. They may have degrees in finance, which is all part of what we'll call a stakeholder that is required. But you cannot leave, say, the lived experience from being a voice at the table. You can have the businessman, you can have the politician, you can have the educator. All those things are necessary because they have a certain skill set that they bring to the table. But what we bring to the table is the lived experience. Is the psychology, it's the sociology. Is the emotional aspect that what we can talk about to help you begin to develop programs, rehabilitative type program that will allow the system to better benefit. It just can't be punitive. We just can't lock them up, throw away the key philosophy. That has to change. That hasn't worked. It's not going to work. We both understand prison. It is a a multi-billion-dollar industry. It is about the money. We clearly understand that. But if you will spend, and I think I heard someone say this, is that in Rikers Island, New York, I think in Rikers Island, New York, to keep someone there for a year, to keep an inmate incarcerated for a year in Rikers Island, New York, costs $500,000. And compare that with send someone to college, to Harvard University, an Ivy League elite school, Harvard University, for like $80,000.
So what it says is it is about the business, making money. It's about the business, money. Where some will pay $500,000 to incarcerate for a year, as opposed to spending $80,000, $70,000 to educate someone. You know what I'm saying? You got to be think. You got to be. So definitely, Mr. Sabi, I want to thank you for taking your time. You know, to be a part of the bullpen conversation. You're always welcome to come back. When it's convenient for you. I don't know if someone to get in contact with you, what you're doing. So if someone to get in contact with you, how can they reach you?
I have a website, gopusher.com, and or peoplepusher2 wixsite.com, or Facebook, people pusher. Um, pushing forward, and that is my IG account too. I post nothing but positive affirmations. Um, and yeah, and I'm going to start talking soon.
Okay. No, but again, thank you again, Mr. Sabi. Again, for those that want to reach me by email, you can reach me at freshair112194 at gmail.com. You can reach me on Facebook, just put in Max Ragland, send me a friend request. My IG account, man underscore behind underscore bars underscore. That's how you can reach me. I definitely want to hear from you. I want to hear your thoughts, your feedback. I want to, you may have topics that you may want to see discussed. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for being a part of this bullpen conversation. Brother Sar, thank you as well. Doing a phenomenal job. And looking forward to the next time. Uh, as you know, may not already know, for the first time who are tuning in, bullpen conversation is done. It is the last Sunday of each month. So the next one would be the last Sunday in February, 10 a.m. That's 10 a.m. Eastern time, 9 o'clock, down in the dirty South or Central time. But definitely tune in. And I understand Sunday is the day that people are going to church and spending time with family. And you may not be able to tune in at 10 a.m. But definitely you have the moment, take the moment to stop, to tune in, to share with a friend, to share with a relative, and pass this on. We got to get the word out. The bullpen is a forum that specifically set up for men and women who've been incarcerated, but they will have a platform to tell their stories, to heal, and to advocate for themselves. So it's like 1101. Be safe out there. Coronavirus is real. Follow your own conscience in terms of whether you're going to be vaccinated, but definitely stay washed up, wear your mask, social distancing, to be safe. We definitely can, we can get to a better place with that. Going into the week, be careful out there, take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time on having a conversation with the board. Peace. That's it. That's it.